Good evening. Let's call this meeting to order. It's Thursday, March 19, 2009, 7 p.m. The microphone's on. They're apparently not. You can hear it? How about out there?
Can't hear it.
Well, anybody else? Okay, does that work?
Yes. There you
Can you hear me, Mr. James? Thank you.
I can hear you.
Okay. Roll call.
Betts. Here. Carter. Cowart. Denitz.
Here.
Gladney.
Present.
Hunt. James.
Here.
Jay.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Knott.
Here.
Kurtz.
Here.
Langenheim.
Here.
McGinty.
Here.
Mosier.
Here.
Nudo.
Here.
O'Connor.
Here.
Richards.
Here.
Rosales.
Here.
Sapp.
Here.
Schrader.
Here.
Smucker.
Here.
Wysocki.
Here.
Ammons.
Here.
Anderson.
Here.
Beckett.
Here.
Benzel.
Here.
And Weibel.
Here. We have a quorum. Mr. Hunt is away on a family matter. Today's prayer is by Robert Frost, entitled A Prayer in Spring. Oh, give us pleasure in the flowers today, and give us not to think so far away as the uncertain harvest. Keep us here, all simply in the springing of the year. Oh, give us pleasure in the orchard white, like nothing else by day, like ghosts by night. And make us happy in the happy bees that swarm dilating around the perfect trees. And make us happy in the darting bird that suddenly above the bees is heard, the meteor that thrusts in with needle bill, and off a blossom in midair stands still. For this is love, and nothing else is love, to which it is reserved for God above, to sanctify to what far ends he will, but which it only needs that we fulfill. Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the clerk read the notice of the meeting, please?
Notice is hereby given that a regular meeting of the County Board, Champaign County, Illinois, will convene on March 19, 2009, 7 o'clock p.m. in the Lyle Shields Meeting Room, Brookings Administrative Center, 1776 East Washington Street, Urbana, Illinois, in said county for the purpose of allowing and ordering payment of claims against the county, receiving and acting upon reports of committees, and such other matters as may be brought before said meeting shall continue in session from day to day until the completion of said business.
To approve.
Moved to approve by Ms. Osaki. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. James. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Seek approval of the minutes of February 19th, 2009.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Beckett.
Second.
Second by Mr. Carter. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Seek approval of the agenda. Moved by Mr. J, second by Mr. Langenheim. I would like to move policy personnel appointments to the very end, because that contains a closed session. With that, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Date and time of the next regular meeting is Thursday, April 23rd, 2009 at 7 p.m. Public participation. Paula Clark.
Hi, I was just wanting to address, because I do understand that we are still having the budget cuts as we speak, and for us not to go so much as doing a single administrator as far as doing an extensive pay raise on that. With the county having as problems that they're having right now, I don't feel that that's necessary, and we're already hearing about layoffs and other budget cuts for next year. I think we need to start that now. That's all.
Thank you. Ms. Deborah Young.
Hi, I live in District 3, and I'm not sure who my I know your names, but I don't know who you are, but that will be changing. I vote in every election. A couple of things I wanted to address. One, I wanted to relay an experience that my husband and I had recently with a nursing home. We found ourselves in a position of having to find a nursing facility for my mother-in-law. He called and left 3 separate messages at the nursing home on their answering machine, and he never received a phone call back. So someone should possibly investigate how the nursing home is fielding phone calls, if in fact they are. We ended up placing her somewhere else. The other thing I would like to address kind of echoes what Paula says. I'm a county employee. Even though some of our elected officials don't show up for work every day, most of us show up for work every day. And we work from the minute we walk in the door till the minute we walk out the door. So I know that we all understand that there will be further budget cuts. I understand that we dodged the bullet initially because the county department heads were able to make some cuts in the budget so that we weren't able to, or we did not have to take furlough days or layoffs. We're not naive enough to think that that isn't going to be something that we're going to have to face come the end of the year. So what I'm going to urge you to do now is to be fiscally responsible and start looking at ways that you can stop spending and that you can start cutting now, so that at the end of the year, you're not trying to balance the budget on the backs of the people who actually do the work in the county. Thank you.
Mr. Randall Cotton.
This is in regard to Mr. Beckett's recent proposal to change the board's committee structure. More specifically, it's about Mr. Beckett's misrepresenting portrayal of that proposal, which misled members of the board and the general public. As reported in the News Gazette on February 18th and again on March 5th, Mr. Beckett's proposal eliminates the Highway and Transportation Committee, chaired by Lorraine Cowart, moving its duties to his own committee. That is, the committee he chairs, the Finance Committee, the Facilities Committee, excuse me. In those articles, it was reported how Mr. Beckett said, and I'm quoting from the article, "Construction issues belong in the Facilities Committee." Here are the sections of his proposal that describe this. All mention of the Highway and Transportation Committee and its duties and roles are crossed out. Those duties and roles are added in yellow here to those of Mr. Beckett's committee, and his committee's name is extended with the additional italicized words "and transportation," the Facilities and Transportation Committee. However, going back to at least February 17th, Mr. Beckett has portrayed his proposal in the opposite way. He has portrayed his proposal to board members and the public as eliminating his own committee, with his committee's duties being moved to Highway and Transportation. In the face of substantial opposition to the proposal at the Democratic caucus meeting on February 17th, Mr. Beckett claimed, "I'm actually killing my own committee. I'm eliminating my chairmanship. My committee is getting folded into Lorraine's." 2 days later, during the February County Board meeting on February 19th, in the face of complaints from the public about his proposal, he claimed, if adopted, Facilities Committee would be folded into Highway and Transportation. If the proposal was adopted as currently written, I would be eliminating my chairmanship. My chairmanship. Now, I can't know Mr. Beckett's intent unless he reveals it, but Mr. Beckett's misrepresentation provides the appearance that he intentionally misled county board members and the public so that his proposal might receive more support and be more likely to pass. But as I say, I cannot know what Mr. Beckett's intentions were or whether he just made a series of inadvertent mistakes. Regardless, the mere appearance of impropriety is something that should give rise to concern. While clearly we're not dealing with a possible crime or anything, the intentional, self-serving misrepresentation suggested by this appearance is the kind of thing that certainly could call into question one's fitness to serve in office. It is not a trivial matter and should not be glossed over. About 2 weeks ago, in an attempt to clarify this matter, I asked Mr. Beckett the following question. How do you reconcile the discrepancy between your published proposal, which eliminates highway in favor of facilities, and your contradictory verbal portrayal of it, where you describe it as eliminating facilities in favor of highway? Though Mr. Beckett finally responded to my email today, he ignored my question and it remains unanswered. The longer this question remains unanswered, the stronger the self-serving appearance becomes. Since Mr. Beckett has yet to answer the question and his actions affected the entire board and the public, I have come here to ask Mr. Beckett once again to come clean on this matter and answer the question I originally posed. How do you reconcile the discrepancy between your published proposal, which eliminates highway in favor of facilities, and your contradictory verbal portrayal of it, where you describe it as eliminating facilities in favor of highway? If there is an innocent explanation, why not bring it forth here so that all who were affected by the misrepresentation could hear it and understand? And I would appeal to Mr. Beckett not to change the subject, deflect the question, or answer a different question as he did in his email response to me. Thank you.
Move to suspend the rules. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Mr. Cotton.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Mr. Cotton, I'm tired of your emails. You don't just send emails to me. You send emails to everyone. You can ask Ms. Cowart. I've said to Ms. Cowart, facilities would no longer meet on Tuesday nights if my proposal was adopted. We would meet on Friday mornings. She would be chair of the committee. She has expressed reservation to me about being chair of the committee. Haven't you, Lorraine? And she's asked, how are we going to handle the facilities issues if I am chair? If you would just talk to me directly, you'd get these answers, but you play games. And don't you dare say I misrepresent anything. You don't know what's inside my brain unless you talk to me. You're playing games, and I'm tired of it.
Is there further public participation? Seeing none, let's go on to the, announcements. The first announcement I'd like to have would be the nursing home announcement. Ms. Anderson.
The nursing home board met last night, which was a week later than our usual time, but that was just for this month. Just a couple of things for update. Our census as of last night was 198. In January has been the best month so far financially. But then in February, our census dropped at 1 point to 188, and this could be for a variety of reasons. The nature of that kind of service, people do die, leave for various reasons, but one reason is probably that Carle Hospital is remodeling 80 of their surgical beds, rooms at this point, and so their surgeries are down, and this does affect our rehab numbers. But we're climbing back up again. I don't know how many of you read the classifieds, or maybe you've heard in other ways, but we do have an ad as of a little over a week now for a director of nursing. Our director of nursing retired just a couple of weeks ago. And so we have an interim serving as provided by management until we hire a permanent director of nursing. And Alan Nudo is going to share some information about IGT, which if anybody wants to read about, we have a 4-page, I think, which is very complicated.
We spent quite a bit of time on the intergovernmental transfer program. There is an opportunity, once we get the proper software called CareWatch, that we will be able to increase the amount because of a better accounting system or a software system that will allow more data to go into the patient's symptoms, which allow us to charge at a higher rate. The intergovernmental system right now allows you to get a fixed amount. The advantage of that is we get the amount up front and fast. If we go to the CareWatch, we will continue to get that until CareWatch starts going above that line that is a fixed amount. And it could be a substantial amount. And I believe the biggest issue right now is getting the software, getting the people trained. And quite frankly, we've talked about this for several months, and I know the board is very concerned that we go forward with this, and I believe Mr. Scavato understands where our concerns are. Now, the only other thing I would report is that today we had 3 town hall meetings. I attended the 731, and Andrew did a great job telling everybody just what's happening, getting everybody up to speed, introducing new employees. And I did get a chance to meet the interim DON and had a few words with her, and she seems to be a top-notch person, but she's not the final candidate. Thank you.
Okay.
Question?
Mr. Betts, you have a question about?
I didn't catch the figure. How much are we in the black the last 2 reporting periods?
Dan, for January and February?
I don't have the figures right in front of me, but since October.
Mr. Nudo?
Mr. Noodle says he has them.
As of this report, and you're looking for it, you can't find it. Say that again. Go ahead, you do it, Sam.
Mr. Smarker, go ahead and use your microphone. Make that statement.
My memory was that it was 100,000 for January, and about 10,000 was the estimate for February.
Okay. If I recall, I remember hearing 100,000 for January too.
We were red in November, 25,000. We were black, 83,000 in December, and 101,000 in January. And then, as Sam said, there was a drop-off in census, so it'll be about 10.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right.
Everything wasn't in yet for February, so he couldn't give really final figures for February.
Is there anybody else want to comment about the nursing home? Okay, let's go to promise Mr. Knott.
Thanks. I just wanted to mention a community member that passed, and I know we do this from time to time, but Fred Welch was a friend of, I know at least all the Republicans, and I have a feeling probably knew several of the Democrats, and I think he lived in District 9, if I'm not mistaken, but Fred was a very special guy in that I met him about 10 years ago. For those that don't know his background, he was an agronomy professor at the university, and I don't know, maybe retired, 15, 20 years ago. But Fred is a perfect example of somebody that became interested in politics. Never wanted to run for anything, and I think his entry into into this world, so to speak, was at Tim Johnson's announcement in 2000 when he ran for Congress the first time at the Marl Plots. But anybody that ever met Fred, he'd come up, shake your hand, say, "Hi, I'm Fred Welch, how you doing?" And he always had a kind word to say about everybody. I never heard him say a negative thing about anybody. And I guess, when somebody like him in our community passes, it's a real loss for everybody, just because of the congeniality he brought to this sport, so to speak, that is so lacking so many times. And so I just wanted to take a minute to mention him and the loss that really I think the whole community will suffer in the years ahead.
Mr. Beckett?
Thank you. I want to echo that too. Fred Welch was an outstanding citizen and cared very deeply about this community. I wanted to comment on former Champaign Mayor Dan McCollum. He hosted Lincoln Fest this past weekend at the Virginia Theater, and it was a true community event. It was just a wonderful event, and the work that Dan McCollum and Nancy Casey, the organizer, and her assistant Lisa Wilson did deserve public commendation. And obviously the county has a role to play in this because of the county Lincoln Bicentennial Commission.
Mr. Moser?
I took Fred Welch's course in 1966, which is Soils 302 Agronomy, and I learned more from that guy about soils in Illinois than I did any other professor any time I was at the university.
Would you tell us what you got for a grade?
I got a B.
Pass, fail.
Any other announcements? Mr. Kurtz, did you have an announcement? Mr. Kurtz, were you going to say something?
Yes, thank you. Next week, Thursday at 6:30.
Microphone, Mr. Kurtz.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Next week, Thursday at 6:30 p.m. here, an extremely important public meeting of the ZBA will take place. They will be discussing the wind farm ordinance. I cannot emphasize how important the wind farm ordinance will be to the financial health of this county. Revenues running into the millions of dollars over the next 20 years. This board will have the responsibility of opening the door to a safe, clean, renewable energy. There has been some very vocal opposition, and it has become clear there's a very small minority in opposition, and having become so redundant in their protests that most of us have tuned them out. So I invite the entire board to attend the next very important ZBA meeting and hope that those most positively affected are also in attendance. Thank you.
Are there further announcements? Okay, let's move on to consent agenda. Any items you wish to take off the consent agenda? Mr. Beckett?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second by Mr. Mosier. Roll call.
Betts.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Cowart. Dennett's.
Yes.
Gladney.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Jay.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Knott.
Yes.
Kurtz.
Yes.
Langenheim.
Yes.
McGinty.
Yes.
Mosier.
Yes.
Nudo.
Yes.
O'Connor.
Yeah.
Richards.
Yeah.
Rosales.
Yes.
Sapp. Schrader.
Yes.
Smucker.
Yes.
Wysocki.
Yes.
Ammons.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Beckett.
Yes.
Benzel. And Weibel.
Yes. Motion carries. Committee reports, Justice and Social Services. Mr. Gladney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have 3 items on consent and then 1 on the regular agenda. So I move the adoption of resolution number 6922 for the approval and, if awarded, acceptance of renewal of the Illinois Terrorism Task Force grant to develop a countywide tactical interoperable communication plan.
Second by Mr. Sapp. Discussion, Mr. Gladney.
Yeah, this was not discussed at committee. This came about to my attention last week. If we're going to approve this, it needs to be done this month because the funds will become available April 1st. It's a $54,000 grant through IEMA and the Illinois Terrorism Task Force to work with the municipalities and the county and the emergency services to develop and plan and train and do the exercises for this plan. And we do have Mr. Bill Keller from the EMA here, so if there's any questions, he's here to answer those.
Any further discussion in the form of perhaps questions for Mr. Keller or not? Well, Mr. Betts.
Mean to accept the renewal if it's a first-time grant.
Well, Mr. Keller, can you explain that?
I'm sorry to hear, please.
What does it mean to accept a renewal of, or isn't it a first-time grant?
There is no renewal. This is a one-time shot grant. It's a reimbursement grant for any funds we'd expend in the process of creating this interoperable communication plan.
And I'm just going to assume it's a confusing statement here because it does acceptance of renewal of the Illinois terrorism. I'm going to omit renewal from it because it doesn't make sense if it's there.
We've never had it before, so it's not a renewal to us.
That's what I assumed, but I wanted to make sure.
It's one of the few times we came to you and didn't ask for money. It's kind of like free money coming in, so, you know.
No such thing as truly free money.
We get paid for the work we do. How's that?
Okay.
Mr. Betts, are you suggesting we amend the motion so we
I think
remove the words of renewal from Resolution 6922?
I would hope that the mover would consider it friendly.
Second.
Well, Mr. Gladney was the mover. Who did this? Mr. Sapp?
Specifically what this task force is supposed to do and with whom?
It'll be a group that we actually already have in place made up of public safety officials and elected officials that will work with our communication plans that we have now and make those interoperability with the state communication facilities and equipment.
Tell me specifically who this is. Who is this? What is it? The city? Is it?
It's
who are the-
both cities, it's the rural fire departments, it's the rural police departments, it's emergency management agency, it's both ambulance companies, all people that would respond to any type of emergency or major disaster in Champaign County. And doing this, we could bring exterior resources from other counties in and be able to talk to them on a certain frequency while they're coming in and while they're working with us.
This task force is not dealing with necessarily weather emergencies. It says specifically.
Correct.
This is a different.
This isn't a weather emergency
This
issue.
is not
no.
a weather emergency.
No.
This is something specific.
And it's not necessarily related to terrorism incidents. It could be related to weather should a tornado wipe out a large part of the county, and we were asking for resources outside the county to respond to support our operations. And how would we talk to them and how would we work with them?
Further questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
That's all for
Thank you.
justice.
County facilities, Mr. Beckett.
No items for board action tonight, other
Thank
than
you.
on consent.
Moving on to finance.
Thank you,
Begay.
Mr. Chair. Item number 1, the Finance Committee recommends adoption of Resolution Number 6913, an emergency budget amendment for $15,600 to allow continued payment to a project consultant for the JANO project through April of 2009, and I so move.
Second by Mr. Mosier. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Oops, no roll call.
Betts.
Yes.
Carter. Cowart. Dennett. Gladney.
Yes.
Hunt. Sorry. James.
Yes.
Jay.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Knott.
Yes.
Kurtz.
Yes.
Langenheim.
Yes.
McGinty.
Yes.
Mosier. Nudo.
Yes.
O'Connor.
Yes.
Richards.
Yes.
Rosales.
Yes.
Sapp.
Yes.
Schrader.
Yes.
Smucker.
Yes.
Wysocki.
Yes.
Ammons.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Beckett.
Yes.
Benzel.
Yes.
Weibel.
Yes, motion carries.
Finance Committee recommends adoption of Resolution Number 6915, authorization for loan to the General Corporate Fund from the Recorder Automation Fund, and I so move.
Second by Mr. Richards. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Finance Committee recommends adoption of Resolution Number 6916, authorization for loan to the General Corporate Fund from the Courts Document Storage Fund, and I so move.
Second.
Second by Mr. James. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Finance Committee recommends adoption of Resolution Number 6917, purchases not following purchasing policy, and I so move.
Second by Mr. Langenheim. Discussion. Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Finance Committee recommends adoption of Resolution Number 6918, payment of claims authorization, and I so move.
Second by Mr. Richards. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
That's all from Finance, and go Illini.
Highway and Transportation, Ms. Cowart.
Highway Transportation has one item on the agenda, and that is adoption of resolution number 6921, appropriating $290,000 from the county motor fuel tax fund for engineer fee for a pavement management study. Oh, no.
Thought you were done.
That's section number 05-004-01-01-ES, and I so move.
Second by Mr. Benzo. Discussion, Ms. Amons.
Can I get some background on this?
Sure, Mr. Blue is here.
We contracted with Applied Research Associates back in 2007 to do our initial pavement management study, where we had them assess all the roadways in Champaign County, utilizing some highly specialized equipment that they have. What they do is they have a semi that has lasers on the bottom of it, and it's the only one actually, to my knowledge, in the world, at least in the United States of America, where they go around, basically they drive the roadways and measure the deflection of the roadways based on the lasers underneath the truck. And what that does is tells us the relative strength of the roadways based on the pavement management study. They also go around with a camera on a vehicle, a van that is tied into a GPS system, and they film the entire right-of-way of the roadway as well. And they have cameras that film the right-of-way, film straight ahead, and then they also have cameras that film the roadway as they're driving, so that they can count the amount of cracks, see the deformation in the pavement, and see all of the different things that are going on with the pavement. And they put this into a software program where we can literally go and view what they've driven on the roadway. We made a matrices that showed, based on life of roadway, based on the different kinds of problems we were having on the roadway, what the next action would be on that roadway, whether it be to rebuild the roadway, to overlay the roadway, to do a seal coat on the roadway, to crack seal the roadway. And what we use this for is basically to schedule all of our pavement maintenance on that roadway over a long time, over a long term, over a 20-year life of the roadway. What this is doing is this is a 5-year contract. When we came here initially, it was recommended by one of the members of the board that we work with Applied Research Associates to get a 5-year contract to continue to do this work for us. So this $290,000 that's being appropriated through this resolution is actually spent over a 5-year period. So we're spending $80,000 the first year for them to rerun the system, $25,000 the next year to upgrade all of the data, and then the next year they'll run it again. So it's on a $80,000, $25,000, $80,000, $25,000, $80,000 type of program. And basically the reason you do it every other year is because you want to get a good reading of how your roadways are reacting, how they're starting to react to the different traffic levels, to the weather. And they graph all this for us in the pavement management system. And we can tell by those graphs at what point in time we need to do a seal coat in order to make sure that the life of the roadway is extended, or at some point the life of the roadway becomes such that we don't want to spend any more money on maintenance. We don't want to do overlays. We don't want to do any more seal coats. And we just basically let the road go until such point that we're going to rebuild it. So we can make those decisions not by the seat of our pants, and not because Joe Smith lives in that region, he thinks the roadway ought to be rebuilt. We have a good reason for spending our money. And it came about from the fringe road discussions that we had back when I first got here, and talking about how much money the county needed to maintain their roadways and how much money we could realistically spend on the urban roadways in Champaign County. And we felt the need to back up our statements with good hard data. So we hired Applied Research Associates, and this is a continuation of that contract. And I have Bill Vavrick, who is one of the principals at ARA here, if anybody's got any technical questions that I'm not able to answer about the pavement management system.
Mr. Kurtz.
It will also save us money in the long run, because it'll pinpoint for Jeff and his department exactly where we need to make replacements, changes, or maintenance, other than just haphazardly trying to fix places that look bad. And over the period of time, this will save us money.
Exactly. And what this contract does that's a little different from the initial contract is they're actually housing all the data in their server, and we're accessing it through the internet. It's our data. We have all the rights to it, but they're doing all of the maintenance of the data. We don't have to have our IT department do anything. So we access it through an internet with a password, and we can do virtual drives on the roads. We can do all the graphs. They'll do different types of studies and different types of functions that we would want them to do based on when we built County Highway 22 up near Royal. When the ethanol plant was the thing that was coming and we needed to make that road an 80,000-pound truck route, we used our pavement management study and had ARA perform a program analysis to see what we needed to do to that roadway to bring it up to an 80,000-pound life. Or an 80,000-pound carrying road. And basically, IDOT requires you to do that. So had we not had the pavement management study in place at that time, we would have had to have gone out and done some kind of study and then use that study to come up with that information.
Mr. Langenheim? Microphone, please.
I think the board should realize that this is an innovative, groundbreaking technique, and we're right in the forefront of it. And it provides objective data upon which to plan your continuing maintenance of your roads. It takes the human factor out of having somebody walk down the road and eyeball it. And so it's uniform and mechanical, and it really is well worth it.
Thank you.
Mr. Beckett.
Mr. Blue, at committee, I asked if have our lawyer review the contract. Remember that?
He did.
And he did that?
Yes. Mr. DeThorne has reviewed it. He had a couple comments. We made changes, and so it's approved through his office.
Thank you.
Further questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Blue.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, policy, personnel, and appointments. Mr. Betts.
Good evening. I guess by way of announcement, for people who are not a member of the policy committee, the restructuring in terms of the committee structure was discussed at length at the committee meeting, and it was sent to the subcommittee to work out the details and solicit more ideas. So it is still out there for notice and comment. I move the adoption of resolution number 6901, appointing Donald Uchtman to the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District Board, term ending December 31st, 2012, and I so move.
Second by Mr. Beckett. Sorry, Mr. Schrader, you beat me to it. Discussion. Mr. Betts.
I will note that that's a Republican appointment, and that the Republican members of the committee did suggest and adhere to that name.
And Ms. McGinty, are you going to abstain?
Thank you.
Mr. Beckett.
I've known Don for probably 30 years, and there isn't a more qualified person in the community to serve on this board.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, we need a reason for Mr. McGinty abstaining.
Previous business with the CUMTD. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move adoption of resolution 6904, reaffirming ordinance number 837, establishing a single county administrator system and prescribing the duties, powers, and responsibilities of the county administrator. So moved.
Second.
Second by Mr. McGinty. Discussion. Mr. Betts.
It is here largely because both the structure committee and the policy committee felt that before we took any further action, we needed to make sure that the county was still on board. From the last term before the election, we had voted to do this, and we felt it was necessary for the new board with the new membership to reaffirm that before going further, and that's what we're doing tonight.
Further discussion. Ms. Amons.
I just had a question. Once, outside of the reaffirming necessarily, but once the single administrator comes to bear, is that then a new job description that will be applied to that single administrator?
I think that's not been decided yet. Would anybody agree or disagree with that? Ms. McGinty?
We talked about it in special committee, and that's exactly right. We are looking at whether that signifies a new position per se, or if it is a renewal of an existing position.
Further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I move adoption of resolution number 6905, establishing a department head hiring procedure for single county administrator position.
Second.
Second by Mr. McGinty. Discussion. Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
No opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Betts.
I think we need to go into closed session. I move that we enter into executive session pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2, parent C1, to consider the employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of an employee. I further move that the following individuals remain present: the recording secretary.
Second.
Second by Mr. McGinty. Roll call.
Betts.
Yes.
Carter. Cowart. Dennett's.
Yes.
Gladney.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Jay.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Knott.
Yes.
Kurtz.
Yes.
Langenheim.
Yes.
McGinty.
Yes.
Mosier. Nudo.
Yes.
O'Connor.
Yes.
Richards.
Yes.
Rosales.
Yes.
Sapp. Schrader.
Yes.
Smucker.
Yes.
Wysocki.
Yes.
Ammons. Anderson.
Yes.
Beckett.
Yes.
Benzel. And Weibel.
Yes. Motion carries.